My name is Summer Riley. I write paranormal and dark romance. I love writing things that are dark and have a little bit of mystery to them and tension to them. That's what really turns me on.
Welcome back to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore romance in books where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I'm sitting down with author Summer Riley. Summer is a return guest, and she's here today to talk about her new dark romance series, The Douglas Brothers. We're also going to be touching on some themes that are emerging in Summer's writing, not equating happily ever afters with perfect characters, and instead making room for flawed main characters that almost remind us a little bit of ourselves or who we sometimes wish we could be, if there were no consequences, of course. So, Summer, welcome back to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, Summer, the last time you were here, we had such a good conversation. We touched on so many things, but you really brought us into the world of Cade and Lexi in your possession duology. And when you were here, I promised that I couldn't wait to have you back to talk about the next series you were working on. And you teased it a little bit in the last episode. Now that you're back, I would love to hear what you've been up to since the last time we spoke, because just from social media, it looks like you've been very busy.
Very busy. I'm preparing to release the first book in my 4-book series of the Douglas Brothers. First up is the Tycoon, and that is releasing October 6th. So I'm very excited about that. Knee deep in the whole release chaos. And I'm also halfway through writing the second book. So I'm just like a little train right now, just keep chugging along.
I am always so impressed as I watch from the sidelines, right? You watch through social media and you see what people are doing. And one thing that always stands out to me about you is how you show up in community and how you show up with other writers and creatives, whether it's your support, your encouragement, all of those things. I can feel your enthusiasm for this community bouncing off the page all the time. And I don't want to make you uncomfortable as we open the episode with that. And I'm just kind of fangirling, but it's something I do really notice about you. So before we dive into the book and this series, A New World, tell me a little bit about what it's like to be immersed in this, having your own launches, but also being part of this community.
So I want to try to support other authors as much as I can, other readers as much as I can. I like trying to build relationships with people and building that community. It can be a little difficult on social media. I want to build a community. I want to build a good readership that can just get along with each other and not be part of drama. Does that make sense?
It definitely makes
Yeah.
sense. And it's interesting when you observe how people move. It's almost like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And so I really feel that in you. And it's so funny because I get so much feedback about the episodes that I've already launched for this podcast. And one of the things I hear most often is how people felt when you shared your love letter and just how raw and present and vulnerable and generous you were with bringing us into the emotion and what brings you to that sort of crossroads in your life when you're deciding what is it that I want more than anything and what would I regret if I had not been able to do something. I always hear feedback about that. And I've often thought about it since you and I recorded that episode and asked myself, what would be the one thing that I would regret that I had not done if this all ends tomorrow? And I think
Yeah.
it's been really helpful and very clarifying. And it's so interesting that people respond so much to your love letter. Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me because I actually almost asked you if we could just skip the love letter. It was a very vulnerable moment for me. And also, I felt like I didn't deserve to say what my letter was about. I felt like I was not successful enough to read that letter aloud for the whole world to hear. And then I had to dig deep with myself and realize that I can be proud of the things I've done. I can be hopeful to have success in the future, even if my numbers aren't what people would consider a success. I'm really glad I did that. Even if you feel like you're just like at ground level, you still can be proud of yourself and you can hope for better things and you can have dreams. It's okay to want to be a best-selling author. It's okay to have those dreams. Don't listen to your brain that says, oh, well, people will just think that you're stupid. Like, oh, you want to be a bestseller? Like, yeah, right. That's never going to happen. But we all have high apple pie in the sky hopes or whatever that is. It's okay. And you can be proud of yourself, even if you are at ground level. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. I am just, I guess, ruminating on what you're sharing and the fact that it's the love letter that most people mention to me, and you almost didn't want to share it. And I feel
Yeah.
like for anyone listening to take that lesson from it, because I'm taking that lesson from it, by the way, I'm not preaching
Yeah.
to anyone, I'm just sharing my internal process. I'm thinking about the thing that internally I'm telling myself to resist, or I don't deserve, or I'm not good enough yet, or blah, blah, or whatever the chatter is, when someone's sort of beckoning me in and saying, hi, this is what I want from you. And I'm saying, oh, no, you don't. No, you
Yeah.
don't. You don't want
Right.
that from
Right.
me. And it's the thing that so many people are resonating with. And it's generated so much self reflection just in me. I listened to your love letter, I edited it and QA'd it and did all this and thought about what you said. And I've shared in a gentle way on social media and on here, I had an incredibly difficult year
Yeah.
regarding my health. And so when you shared your love letter about being in that position and what it makes you think about, it was something that I didn't even know I needed to hear. And so, what I'm taking away from not only you sharing that, but you sharing about your resistance to it is that's where the medicine is. And it's not up to me to judge. So, I guess my concept of humility in that situation is not thinking that I'm less than, but to get right sized and say, maybe I'm here as a conduit and I don't get to question the things that move through me, whether that's a book, a series, a family, a purpose. Maybe that's my work. It might be
Mm-hmm.
your work too, Summer, who knows? But maybe that's our work, is
Yeah.
to step back from that criticism that we think is protecting us, but it's actually preventing us from showing up for what we're here for. Because I
Oh,
think to
that's good.
myself, right? She
That's
used to be
good.
a
I know.
therapist.
Like, write
she
that
used
down.
she used to be able to say things in the moment. No, but I'm thinking about that and really appreciating that you're willing to even share that moment of hesitation and what that means for us as women. And maybe somebody listening to this can take that reminder and say, when I have that moment that says, you don't deserve this, you haven't earned it, you don't belong here, all of those things, maybe I can say to that, well, that's great. That's my first thought. But I'm used
Mhm.
to that being my first thought. So maybe my second thought is I'm here for a purpose and I don't get to determine what that purpose is. And I can allow things to move through me.
Yeah,
I
that's
always feel
great.
like you and I have very deep conversations, and I'm not sure
Too.
how much of this is going to make it into the episode, but I really feel like
My heart
you
feels better, so thank you.
yeah, you bring so much to the surface. And I do want to say, like, I took it so seriously that you shared such a vulnerable moment in that love letter with us. And you were
Yeah.
so generous and you didn't know me that well. And you were really willing to do that. And I think that particularly that moment you shared about is a
Mhm.
moment that women are almost encouraged not to talk about, the difficult moments. We're only allowed
So
to talk
true.
about how it made it all worth it and how everything was
Mhm.
good in the end and how we've survived or thrived, but we're not allowed to share the moment of vulnerability when we were scared or
Mhm.
we almost felt like we lost it all.
Mhm.
So
That's
if you
true.
ever doubt yourself in this process, would just ask that you think about that moment and what that means to the women who listen to this podcast who heard themselves in what you shared. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
that's getting me right in the heart. Like, I needed to hear that.
I like that Saturday morning. I've decided to just drop in super deep as we open this episode into this philosophical exploration that your previous love letter brought us to. But I was thinking about that and I was wondering as I'm reading books and meeting with authors, what is it that everyone wants more than anything? And maybe it's
Yeah.
the thing that they haven't spoken out loud. So I'm wondering, as you're introducing us to this new world in the Tycoon, before we get into the characters and everything, what is it that these two want more than anything?
Well, for Dolly, who is the FMC, she just wants love. She wants true unconditional love. She wants a family. She's a very traditional, kind of old school lady, a old school girl. So yeah, she's got that romantic heart in her. She is a reader. She's a voracious reader. She's a librarian, so she is consumed with all these romance stories. And I think that's what she's looking for in her real life. And she gets it in a dark way.
Well, what about your main male character? What is it that he wants more than anything?
Sutton is a little bit more complex. He was not looking for love when she came into his life. She was his mark. And so he was prepared to unalive her. But there was something within her, and he just latched onto it. And he becomes so obsessed with it and can't go through with his plan, which screws up a lot of other things in his life that he has to rectify in order to keep her.
I
Go ahead.
love stories where we're dropped into a situation when something unexpected happens and it just reorganizes everything that you thought you knew about yourself. And I
Mhm.
feel like it just takes us on such a journey. And so for this to be the opener for your new series is, I don't know, that's pretty big. I love that dynamic between the two of them. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about this book and what we can expect in the Tycoon?
So you can expect the fluffiest dark romance that I've ever written. I, my street team, early art team, they're like, wow, this is really kind of like, this is sweet in a dark way. So that is interesting for me too, because normally I just kind of write super dark things with a lot of rage. And there's a softness to the Tycoon that isn't in like, Lexi and Cade's story. There's a definite softness. There's some really cute moments too. So that was eye opening for me as a writer. Also, this is my first time writing in first person and dual point of view.
So take us into this new journey that you're on and committing to a 4-book series and building out that whole world. I just want to hear more about what that's been like for you and what's coming up maybe creatively. Just drop into that space with us for a little bit.
I haven't had this much fun creating a world in years. um, I love this family so much. First off, I love the idea of having kind of a insane family. Those type of families like the Lannisters from Game of Thrones. I was also thinking last night there is a horror film called Ready or Not. I don't know if you've seen this, but it came out in 2019.
I
This
did.
family. Yeah.
I
Okay.
did.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm having a huge reaction
That's okay.
because I'll just let you in. I watched that and I turned to the person next to me and I was like, "Well, they remind me of some people I know." So anyway, that's just my catty little feedback. But yes, tell me about Ready or Not.
So, yeah, so it has this like insane family, right? And they're super wealthy. And it's a theme for me in my head that the super wealthy, there's always something a little off about them. And so there's something not right. But in Ready or Not, it's a family that has gained their wealth from their, I believe, grandfather or great grandfather. He created games like a Milton Bradley type of situation. And so they're very wealthy because of these games. And so when there is a new member of the family that comes in, the end of the wedding night, they play a game. And so the newest bride randomly chooses a game, and it just happens to be the one game that's like the most brutal. And basically, by the end of the night, either she's dead or the family is dead because the family is cursed. So if they don't kill her before dawn, then everyone in the family dies. It's crazy. I love it. Every time I watch it, I find something else to laugh at. But it's just because it's like cat and mouse. It's
Yeah.
perfect cat and mouse. You think she's going to get away and then something happens and it's back and forth all the time. So, an insane family that is layered because that family is layered. If you think about it, there's all these little side histories that you get bits and pieces of as the story goes on. But everyone in this family has something off about them. And so I thought that was really fun. So I wanted to write a family that's similar. Every one of the brothers, the mother, the father, they all have something that's just a little off. I believe because their lifestyle, because they don't have to worry about consequences. They have no consequences because they have influence. So they're able to do things that we couldn't do or shouldn't do. But there's some redeeming qualities to each of them. And I think that's with everyone. And we all have a little darkness in us, and we all have redeeming qualities. I really love redemption arcs. So I'm trying to give each of the brother a redemption arc.
Interesting. Well, what I love about what you just said was, first of all, I love that you brought up that movie because obviously it made me descend into internal darkness and made me think about what I thought about that movie. But no, I love that you brought up that movie because it's also a good question of who would we be if we didn't have consequences? Who would we be if money was no object? If no one could say anything to us? And I think we all would like to think I would be me, but with more money. I would be me with this. But I do think it's interesting when it's strange to say almost deconstruct because it brings you to that like baser self of who would I be if there was nothing to stop me. So, what is it about Sutton? Who is he as a person? What are we going to resonate with about him?
I love Sutton. He's my dreamy man. I love him so much. And I can't wait to bring him back in other books just because I love him so much. But at his base, he's a Southern gentleman. There's a quote, I think it's something like, the devil is always a gentleman. And that is Sutton. He is a smooth talker. He's very charismatic. He's cool and he's collected and he's meticulous. But he has this dual life. Like on one side, he has this beast inside of him and he likes to kill. It tells him to kill and he has to feed this beast. He's living a dual life. So on one part, he's a vicious man. And then he has his other side of his life where he is a philanthropist. And then on the other side, he can just be so cruel and evil. So that's fun. Have like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing going on with him.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting because I'm thinking about Cade and Lexi, and it's obviously a very different series, but I think the theme I'm getting about you as a writer is checking in with that beast inside of ourselves that we feel like we have to keep masked. Whether it's the situation Lexi has going on inside of herself and she keeps part of herself completely locked down for everyone's
Mhm.
safety, by the way. Or we're
Yes.
thinking, right? She's really doing a
Yeah.
service to
Yeah.
humanity by keeping certain
She
parts of
is.
herself locked away. But then I think it's really interesting how that's a theme of us having this much darker part of ourselves that can be unleashed on the world. And there's almost that power that we have because it's like, well, you have no idea what I'm keeping hidden away. And there's almost an element of control when you think, lucky you, this part of me is not
Mhm.
coming out right now. So it's a very interesting thread that's moving through your writing. And I love that we're seeing that in a very different way in this series. That's so interesting that we meet him that way. Does Dolly pick up on that right away, or is she a little confused when they meet?
I think Dolly is just so awestruck by him. He really charms her from the beginning. He like kind of love bombs her and he manipulates her. And so she's just like, wow, this really wealthy man, he's hanging in on my every word. He wants me to eat. He orders her like everything on the menu and she gets to pick. She's really charmed by him. And it shows you the power that he has over people because he is so charming and he can get away with stuff.
So I think you just unlocked a trope that I did not know that I loved, but ordering everything on the menu so I can pick. If somebody was to romance me, it would be picking every appetizer on the menu and being like, "You get to just nibble on all of them." So, total side note, has nothing to do with your book, sorry, but I'm having
That's great.
epiphanies as we're talking
Yeah.
about this. No, but I do love that you use that as an example because it's a type of nurturing and freedom and attention. It's that weird Venn diagram
Hmm.
where somebody feels allowed to be themselves and allowed to indulge. And that really does something to someone. So I think it's interesting
Yes.
that you chose that in the book as something
Hmm.
he does, because that's almost like a very unique way of love bombing someone and saying, you get all of this, you get to do whatever you want, pick whatever you want. I'm just kicking back and watching you enjoy it. So
Hmm.
very interesting.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
what are readers going to feel about their relationship? Like when they close the book, how are they going to feel about Dolly and Sutton?
I hope that they love it. I hope that they are satisfied with how their book ends. There might be some other stuff that comes up with them later on. We don't know. We'll see. But I just want them to be satisfied with it. And there are a lot of things, and this is part of the trigger warning. So everyone knows this going in if they read the trigger warnings. There is acceptance of egregious behaviors. I mean, we can't have really a dark HEA unless someone is like, okay, well, I can live with this, right? I don't want people to be too critical over her with that because he does manipulate her through the entire book. And I think speaking as a woman that was manipulated, like many times, you let your guard down if someone is telling you that they love you and they will do whatever you want them to do and they follow through with things. And it's really easy to overlook some things. I hope they really enjoy Sutton. People that have read it so far love him. So I'm really excited to share him. And I hope that they love Dolly too. She's a sweetheart. She's the sweetest character I've ever written. And so I am a little nervous because I don't want her to come off as being some like, oh, Mary Sue dingbat, because she's not. She is a smart woman. I just think that all of us are smart women, but we all can be manipulated by a smooth talker. So just have a little bit of empathy towards Dolly, I hope.
Let's talk about that for a second because I think it brings up so much. And when we're not reflecting on our reactions to things, we can feel that something is certain and true. As you're talking, I was thinking about, well, I read these stories because I do want the extra over the top fictionalized version where something ends up being nice, even though in the real world it would not be. I think that there's something healing in that, and I'm sure 99% of the internet can disagree with me. That's okay. I'm allowed to be human as well. But I do
Yes.
think that many people read books because they can put themselves in a situation and say, but I want it to work out for that person. Not because I'm trying to trick myself or fool myself, but because it's almost like a balm on the wound. And it feels a little bit better to think that in some bizarre alternate universe, this works out for this person. I do love that. But another thing I want to touch on is the box that we put women in and the box we put characters in, and when we say they deserve things. So, to explain, you've often heard the phrase, I'm sure anyone listening, I myself, oh, but she was such a strong woman. She's such a strong woman. She gets this, or she's such a strong woman. She did that. And I think to myself, yes, I understand that. You're trying to give me a compliment or you're highlighting something you admire about that woman, but what if she wasn't feeling strong? Doesn't she still
Yeah.
deserve a good outcome? Doesn't she still deserve to win or to feel safe? What if she didn't play something expertly and didn't know every way to navigate the chessboard? What if she wasn't some extra special superhero character? She was just someone like me. And she
Yeah.
made mistakes and she was confused
Hmm.
and felt insecure sometimes and still ended up with a great story. So I think maybe it's my age or I don't know what it is, but I always look at stories that way. And I think that I go into the stories wanting the flawed character and still
Mm.
wanting them to get happily ever after or to get some kind of ending and not needing them to be perfect because I
Yeah.
really enjoy those stories. So as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, "Oh, well, I this is probably a story I would love because I don't need her to be anything other than who she is, and I'm along
Mhm.
for the ride," because I think we all deserve a story. I think you know, not like my hackles go up, but when someone needs to be superhuman in order to get a good outcome, I always wonder about that. And I'm not sure that those are the stories that I resonate with. So
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying how you're describing these characters that he's going to be deeply flawed for the rest of his life. I don't think he's going to have quite the redemption arc that,
Yeah.
somebody would want him to have.
Mhm.
And she also doesn't need to be perfect. Maybe we can both be morally grayish to some degree and make allowances
Mhm.
and still get a love story or a happily ever after. But that's just
Yeah.
me. So I think about that as we reflect on women characters. And you, as a writer who, in my experience, wrote a very complex lead woman character in the possession duology, and I appreciate that you are bringing us into a completely different character, like a much softer character who's also just as complex in her own way, right? Because there's that
Mhm.
almost belief like you can only
Yes.
be complex if you're harsh and edgy and sassy and
Yeah.
sarcastic,
Oh,
but
that's such a good point. Yeah.
right? Like there's complexity in the softness and how someone moves through the world and makes those decisions. So listen, I'm just really excited about this, and I admire you giving us such a diverse cast of characters and trusting us to be on that journey with them. So, yeah.
I really hope that you guys love these brothers. They're constantly talking to me in my head. I'm in the middle of writing Griffin's story, which he is brother number 3, and he is night and day between Sutton and Dolly, or night and day with Griffin and Oakley. They're just completely different. So I want readers to know that these books, they're not going to get the same characters. They're not going to get the same brothers. Each one is unique. Each one has a different darkness.
I think that there's a really strong parallel between how you're describing this and leaning into what your characters are telling you and trusting your inspiration, your creativity, and a much bigger message about how we show up in the world. You can look at a book and say it's just a book, it's just that. But something I try to talk about on this podcast a lot is it's not just that. It's a commentary on society. It's checking in with how are we receiving women? How are we perceiving them, processing them, devouring them, spitting them out? Like, how are we holding space for women being multidimensional? And so I just like that. And I love having these conversations with you because I feel like you're putting your words out there, you're developing your audience, and through it all, you're trying to be really true to yourself and the characters and how they're approaching you. Somebody could have heard your first ideas for Lexi and been like, "Oh no, she's unlikable." I mean,
Yeah.
I get that. Somebody could say that, but I'm
Mhm.
also thinking to myself, was she supposed to be likable? Or was she
Right.
supposed to resonate with you? Were you supposed to
Yes.
look at her and say, "It's the thing I'm not supposed to like about myself that I see in her, and she's living it loudly, and how incredible is that?" I think
Mhm.
that it's not just supposed to be the thing that makes us feel good all the time, it's supposed to make us feel. And I think when we
Mhm.
remove that word good, we open ourselves up to creativity and inspiration and storytelling. So it's less like pulling up to a drive in menu and saying, "Oh, I'll take the number 3." I'm saying I really like and trust Summer's voice and I trust where she's taking me in this story. And that's what it feels like. So I'm
I
really
love
excited as
that.
someone who loved Lexi and how dark she was and scary she was.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for Dolly and seeing what does that look like where it's the same writer, but she's giving me a very different character. And I feel like you're entering into this new chapter where you've really established yourself in this space. And you can laugh at me. I think you navigate it really well because I watch everything that you do. I probably heart
Thank you.
every single thing you post on social media.
I know, I appreciate it so
But
much.
I think I'm really inspired when I'm watching the people around me trust their voice, trust their writing, trust their creativity, and continuing to lean into that no matter what kind of feedback they get, the good or the bad, because the good can mess you up just as much as the bad can.
It can be really hard, but I'm just kind of trying to focus on what I feel inside of me. And I think everyone should try not to worry about the noise around you too much. And it's a struggle daily. Every day I'm like, well, why am I still doing this? Why I should just give up. And I complain a lot to my street team. Hi guys, I love you guys. But at the end of the day, like I have to do this. So try not to worry about what other people are saying and doing and just keep going for yourself. I usually give myself about 5 minutes to just feel that and feel sorry for myself. And then I switch it and I remind myself why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
And then I dig into my soul and I feel that need again. And then I usually run to my laptop and write a few sentences just to like jar me back into that creative space. But yeah, because I am writing every single day, all the time, in between breaks of other things. I'm constantly writing. I'm constantly, oh my gosh, social media is, can I just say, it's such a time suck.
Yes.
So, like creating your own marketing, indie writers that are doing it all because I do everything myself. I make my marketing. I do everything. Maybe someday I'll be able to hire an editor and things like that. But I do it all. So I keep myself busy. I think that helps too. I switch gears when I'm feeling bad for myself. I'm like, okay, well, let me go on Pinterest and let me find pins to jar me creatively for my other stories. Or I go to my playlist and I listen to the music that inspired me, inspire these characters, and that makes me feel better. Or I vent to, one of my friends and they kind of like kick me in the butt and they're like, no, you're really good. It's okay. And I think having people around you that also believe in you, that's critical.
I think that these conversations are important because no matter how aware we think we are, there's that voice in our head that is doing that compare and contrast and saying it's so much easier for that other person. Look how that other person is moving. Look at how they're being received. Whether it's about writing or anything else in our lives, whether it's people in
Mhm.
relationships, look, their relationship's so perfect, it's so good. And we're really not touching on all the day to day work and energy that gets us there. And so it's so funny to me sometimes when I'm talking to writers and I'm talking about almost a meteoric rise, and they're like, meteoric? And I'm like, girl, it's been 3 years and you've done all of this. That is meteoric. Like you're an astronaut. You're doing amazing things, but we're really, really hard on ourselves. So if I can sort of fangirl about you in my own way, I think to myself, I've been writing my whole life, right? Like it's something I do every single day. It's a practice. It's almost like working out. And I've had an idea for a 3-book series forever. Because you do what you do, how you do it, you make someone like me think I could possibly do that myself. And I
I
feel
love
like
that.
we need to have more of those conversations, not just you and me, because I love talking to you, but I'm saying
Yeah.
in general, I think people need to be having those conversations because I think that there's a power in watching someone do the thing that you want to do and we have no idea what our purpose is. So, yes, your purpose can be to write books, but it's also like maybe you're also here modeling for other women
Oh,
who are very tough on themselves that you are doing the thing. You are doing the thing.
yes,
I
that
can't
makes
even.
me feel Casey, that makes me feel so much better because I 'cause I am critical. So thank you for making me feel better because I feel like I'm just a failure all the time. But I keep trying, but I feel like I'm failing a lot. So
No, these stories are important to share. And I don't know if I shared this with you when we recorded the last episode, but in the middle of the pandemic, I had quit my job and I was freelancing, which I did pretty well at, but I wanted something else. And I was encouraged to start a podcast. I used to be a psychotherapist. So I thought, oh, I'll do a mental health podcast. And it was interesting because strangers received it very well. And people in my life, tertiary people, did not. So, one example I always like to give is that I was posting my episodes on LinkedIn because it's not just a passion. I was a professional in this space for a long time.
Right.
So it's not delusional of me to post a podcast episode about mental health because I was a mental health professional for a long time. Well, in the middle of all of this, I was interviewing for a million jobs and I had a recruiter respond to the fact that I was posting this and they were like, take that off your page. That is so completely unprofessional. Why would you put that out there? Why would you post that? That's she I don't think she used the word embarrassing, but she was basically like, "You're embarrassing yourself, girl.
Wow.
Like, pull that stuff right now. No
Oh
one's
my
gonna take you
goodness.
seriously." And I was like,
Oh
"Is
my God.
psychotherapy not serious? Like, do we not take mental health seriously?" So anyway, I kept it up
Right.
because I really at the time felt like this is the most authentic version of me. I have a massive body of work to pull from. It's not like I was a new baby therapist, which is totally fine if you have a platform and you are, but I mean, I've been doing this for like 20 years. Like I had a lot to pull from. So I kept it up.
Mhm.
Guess what job I ended up getting? A recruiter found me and they were like, "Do you want to build the podcast department for this massive medical media company? We listen to your podcast. You sound amazing." And I was like, "What?" And it's one of those stories I share not because I'm so special. It has nothing to do with me, but it's the stories we need to share about planting the seeds in our life and trusting the process and trusting that I'm going to get weird for a second, but I really trust you to hold that space. So
Yeah.
we're just going to have a weird conversation. But I think about it, and I've actually talked about this on that last podcast, almost like farming. You cannot have a field that is constantly producing fruit and vegetables. You just simply can't. So there's going to be seasons. And there's that one season that is the most painful season of all. And that's when the field has to go fallow and there can be nothing there
Yeah.
and it feels
Mhm.
pointless. It's just taking up empty space, but what it's actually doing is resting, and we dismiss that. And then there's that whole season where you just have to plant and water and let the sun do its job and just trust the process. And I think it's important for us as women to have these conversations about how vulnerable we feel during those different seasons when
Right.
it's not the harvest. We're not getting the awards. It's not the constant five-star reviews, but it's that season of vulnerability when we feel particularly tender and on stage and people are either clapping or booing or looking the other way. And it's like, how do I stay on that stage even during that season?
Totally. Yeah. Because yeah, I just feel that's exactly it. I just don't feel like I'm doing enough. And
You're doing the
it's
most.
that,
You're doing
I know it's,
everything.
it's that, what, the millennial firstborn daughter? Like,
The
it's
man
like
of
I
the
just
house.
need to,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I have to do everything. I feel like I haven't relaxed in forever. I don't even know. I don't even know the last time I was able to just sit on a couch and just do nothing. I can't remember the last time that was. Because even when I'm on the couch, I'm writing, I'm on my phone, I'm taking care of things in my house. So maybe, wow, I'm having a little bit of a crisis. I need to spend some time on myself just to be quiet with myself. And oh, yeah.
I think
I
that a
don't know
lot of
when
people
my
can
I don't
probably relate to that, by the way. So I know that it feels like the
like, oh,
spotlight is on you right now, but I almost feel like that's the most relatable thing because for anyone listening, if you're really honest with yourself, when was the last time that you allowed yourself that almost nothingness to be that fallow field that we just talked about, right? That
yeah.
nothingness, even if it's 5 minutes on the couch, not touching an electronic, not planning, not doing a list in your head. When was the last time we allowed ourselves to do that? I think that's really important. And it's kind of confronting because even as I'm sitting here
Yeah.
talking, it's not like I'm an evolved human being. I'm thinking to myself, God, that's really sad that I can't think of the last time I felt that way. So
Yeah.
well, maybe we'll be besties in that way, and we'll think about that.
Yes.
Maybe we give
Yeah.
ourselves 5 minutes a week to just veg out on the
Right.
couch and not think about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should be like, okay, every Saturday from 9 to 9:05, let's just
Do you have any idea how sad that sounds? 9 to 9:05. I will give you space to relax. That is the most firstborn daughter thing I've ever heard, and if people don't relate to
so
anything
true.
else in this episode, there is gonna be just a band of women who are, like, responding to that and being like, "Wow, you touched something inside of me. So, Summer, I really love that you've spent so much time with me today. Do you have anything that you want to say before we close?
I'm really excited about the Douglas brothers, and I really hope that you guys will come on this journey with me. It will be on KU, so it's easily accessible if you have KU. And just, I would love to share my characters with you. And I'm really excited about them all. And I hope you gobble them up just as much as I am constantly in my head all day.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Summer. And for anyone listening, please check the show notes. I will have all of Summer's contact links down there, and I will try to put in the link to her previous episode so you can kind of do a deep dive. So, Summer, thank you so much for being with us today. And I can't wait to have you back to talk about the rest of this series. So, join us again soon.
I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandmixtapes@gmail.com.